Hey, this is Mazzy, and these are the best pop albums of 2023. My choices, one man's choices. Now, I say the best. Yes, they're my personal best. If you look at Pitchfork, and if you look at Rolling Stone or Mojo or any of the art avant-garde or off-kilter magazines or websites, you're usually going to get a committee putting together, called together from their picks and watering it down to the top 10. These are one man's opinions. So those of you who follow me know my taste somewhat. Again, separate jazz, separate box sets. I may do another video, we'll see, before the end of the year that has all these like extras. There are some soundtracks and neoclassical and maybe experimental, some things that don't really fit within the pop realm here and the rock and roll realm. So these are my choice. Top 25 records of 2023. Here you go. And this is Rickie Lee Jones, Pieces of Treasure. This is a jazz pop record in the tradition of the songbooks of Ella Fitzgerald and Frank Sinatra, obviously a different type of voice. This was produced by Russ Titelman. Russ Titelman first collaborated with Rickie Lee Jones, co-producing her first two albums on Warner Brothers Records. Of course, the big hit out of the box in 1979 was Chucky's in Love, and they've gotten together again. She's made amazing records over the years. There was a record, one of my best sounding records, I think Acoustic Sounds put a version of it out, that covered things like Steely Dan's Showbiz Kids and Low Sparkle High Heel Boys. What a great sounding records. And this is right up there with it. Russ Titelman brought together this sort of piano-led small jazz combo. And this is really beautiful. It has Just in Time, Nature Boy, which has sort of this Middle Eastern effect to it and sound to it and instrumentation to it. One for My Baby, They Can't Take Away From Me. A lot of the standards you've heard, but when you hear a different artist do it, they always add something to it. And so many people have done the songbooks and pop artists as well. But she's got this kind of, you know, she nails it. She still has this beautiful, almost like a young girl's voice. And she does wonderful service to these songs. All the Way, of course, a song that's been covered many times. The Kurt Weill September song, On the Sunny Side of the Street, and It's All in the Game. Just a really wonderful recorded record, beautiful sounding record. Coming in number 25, Rickie Lee Jones. Coming in at number 24 is the first debut album. They had an EP by Das Coolies. This is a Welsh band. This is a very techno-based, heavy bass, heavy drums, a lot of electronics, but then it merges into some really pop, semi-psychedelic Britpop thing. Just beautiful, beautiful harmonies throughout. This is an unusual record. Now, this is basically the rest of Super Furry Animals. Super Furry Animals without Griff Rhys. Griff Rhys left the band, at least they're on a hiatus. Did they break up? Who knows? This is the rest of the band. Super Furry Animals is one of my favorite bands. They're a Welsh band that does this combination of pop music, Britpop, psychedelic, electronic. Griff has most of the melodies. His solo records are song-based, and this is a little different. Very techno, as I said, techno-pop. It's a loud record, but in a really good way. It's a dance record at times. Beautiful packaging. It's accessible, but it's very in that 80s techno-pop thing happening. A lot of electronics on this, but then all of a sudden there'll be these beautiful, lush harmonies mixed in here. This is a 2 LP set from the UK. Beautiful artwork. Of course, everything they do is beautiful artwork in terms of the Super Furry Animals. A lot of this stuff has been character driven, not unlike the Gorillaz in a different artistic way in terms of the sort of anime covers on a Super Furry Animals record. But Das Coolies, there you go, Das Coolies. Let's see, there you go. Let's get that right there so you can kind of see their name right there. Beautiful package. Coming in number 24, Das Coolies LP debut. Coming in at number 23. Now, this was a surprise to me. I didn't know she was still recording. In fact, I think she only made one record aside from this in the last maybe 25, 30 years. And this is someone who was a huge part of the British folk revival in the early to mid 60s. And that's Shirley Collins. This is called Archangel Hill. Shirley Collins is a very influential folk singer in the UK. She is now 88 years old. It's recorded over the last few years, and it's brought together these amazing musicians, very acoustic based, very English/Irish, Scottish folk songs. And she does sing again some of the songs she's recorded over the years. And of course now she's got this huskier, whiskey voice. Now it's not like the whiskey thrash voice Marianne Faithfull all of a sudden had in the late 80s after having this wispy, beautiful light voice with As Tears Goes By when she did dance music. She was doing those late 80s records. This is a folk record, and this is a beautiful organic folk record. Her voice, though, is deeper. It's the voice of an 85, 86-year-old woman, and it is beautiful. It's very poetic, and it's very, traditional folk music of the United Kingdom and Ireland and Scotland. Love this record. Coming in at number 23, Shirley Collins. Coming in at number 22 is Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, Australian Carnage. Now, I usually give his records a lot higher. This is a fantastic record. This surprised me. This just came out in the last couple weeks. I saw the American leg of this, of Warren Ellis and Nick Cave, and it's very much in the vein of all of Nick Cave's. It seems there's a gospel edge of his. He's like a revival. He's like the tent religious revival leader of the religious tents in the South, but coming from Australia. So he's home here at the Australian Sydney Opera House here. I think the reason I had this lower because it's a single record and I wanted more. I recognize a lot of these songs from Ghosteen, songs from some of his other records. This is really beautiful. You hear the audience, you hear the excitement, but he is like this evangelist that just jumps out at you. You hear the falsetto of Warren Ellis there combining it. The band's great. There was a big group of singers behind him when I saw him. That's on this record. This could have been a double record. Maybe it should have been a double record, but I just love this. And I'm all in, of course, on Nick Cave. This is number 22, Nick Cave and Warren Ellis, Australian Carnage. Number 21 was an artist that I saw this year. I've seen him 3 times live, and he's killer. This is Marty Stuart and the Fabulous Superlatives. This is country rock, but it's in country rock in the vein of the Byrds' Sweetheart of the Rodeo. He's very influenced of the Byrds' Sweetheart of the Rodeo. He actually did a tour with Roger McGuinn and Chris Hillman on the 50th anniversary of that album with his band backing. Of course, you got the amazing guitar playing, twangy guitar of Marty Stuart and Kenny Vaughan, his other guitar player, who is no slouch. In fact, the two of them together, and when they interchange, that great twangy, fast Telecaster guitar. This is a great country rock album, but it's a twangy thing. It's a modern, again, Byrds on hyperdrive. What a beautiful record. There's some sort of neo-psychedelic country psychobilly, I guess they used to call it. But what a great, great live. If you had a chance to see Marty Stuart and the Superlatives live, you really need to, because it's an amazing show. I got to see them again just a few months ago, but this is a great record coming in at number 21. Coming in at number 20 is an artist that a handful of my friends have been sending me his records, or one of his records prior to this, and saying, you got to listen to this guy. And I had a certain prejudice against Jason Isbell. This is his newest album, Jason Isbell and the 400 Unit, called Weather Vanes. Beautiful cover, beautiful packaging, of course. A country artist, but a modern country artist. Again, crosses over into the rock vein. Now, I've been told I have to see him live to really appreciate it, and I can understand that. And I've been playing this record a lot over the last month or so, and I really like it. I don't love it. It's not deep entrenched in my musical tastes. I hear a lot of other artists, pieces of other artists. There's a little bit of the Springsteen. He's almost too earnest sometimes in his songwriting, but maybe I have to dive into his lyrics more to appreciate that. I like that his wife, Amanda Shires, an artist all on her own that's really great in her own right, plays violin, sings some backgrounds on several of the tracks. I think I like those best. She played with Highway Women. She's an amazing artist on her own. There's a certain little chemistry I think they have together. There's one song on here, I think it's Middle of the Morning, the last track on side one. This is 2 LPs, by the way. That song, the beginning of it, literally it's lifted. The guitar part is lifted from Van Morrison's Into the Mystic. And nothing wrong with that. And it goes into other things. But there's a lot of familiarity on this record that reminds me of other songs. Again, I said Springsteen, a little bit of John Prine, not vocal-wise, but musicality-wise. But it's still a really good record. So this is Jason Isbell's coming in number 20, Weather Vane, for 2023. Coming in at number 19. This is a new album by Slowdive, Shoegaze. This is sort of that slowcore kind of moody, neo-psychedelic music. This is a really beautiful album. This came out late in the year as well. I have a few friends that turned me on to Slowdive. I wasn't really familiar with it. I never really got into them way back when they recorded 20, 30, whenever it was, 20 plus years ago. So they've kind of reformed. I find that a lot of artists now who have been into this sort of in the 90s and 2000s have come back and made albums, reformed. Some have been together all along, but they seem to have a new audience now, or their audience has grown up and jumped into the vinyl resurgence, and these bands are touring again. But I really like this record. But again, it's a moody, that shoegaze, semi-psychedelic a little bit. Beautiful album, and this is number 19, Slow Dive. And this is the latest album by Yo La Tengo, This Stupid World. The perfect title for where we are in the world right now, definitely. This is, again, another double album by Yo La Tengo. I think they just, my friend Jashid Brooks just got back from New York because they do an 8-night of Hanukkah. They host this series of shows in New York with different guests, and he said it was fabulous. I'd like to see that someday, but this is really great. Sometimes they're very moody, then they break up and they explode a little bit. They get in a jammy way, not unlike the Grateful Dead, but a modern version of that. Again, as I said, some kind of country rock Americana mixed in with some kind of intense, I want to say the word punk. That's like a catch-all. It's not a punk record at all. Very interesting interplay and with the guitars and the bass and drums, but a fabulous record. Coming in at number 18, Yo La Tengo's new album of this year. Earlier this year it came out. Now this was kind of a surprise. Coming in number 17, it's probably the album that came out this year with the most variants. I hear there are 50, 60, 70 variants. And this is Hackney Diamonds by the Rolling Stones. Now, I'm sure someone out there would say that should be in your top 10 or top 5. It ain't. I like it a lot. When I first heard the song Angry, I thought it was a pretty good piece. But when I heard Sweet Sounds of Heaven with Lady Gaga, that gospeling, the sound, I saw the long version video form or something, and it did remind me of something out of Let It Bleed or Sticky Fingers, right? That I always like to cite the 1969 to 71 too. There's this sort of rock and roll gospel thing happening with Delaney and Bonnie and Friends, George Harrison, My Sweet Lord, even John Lennon, Imagine. But most of the Southern, Eric Clapton a little bit, Leon Russell, of course, and Joe Cocker, Mad Dogs and Englishmen, this gospel rock thing. And the Stones were doing it too, obviously, at that time. And with Mary Clayton singing, and this harks back to that. It's a really good record. I mean, I think, the hype too that Paul McCartney bite my head off with that kind of fuzz bass, I think that could have been more interesting. It's kind of them channeling the Sex Pistols, and it's really good. I think my weakness on this, I think this record could have sounded better. Now, I did hear the CD, which I thought was crap. I think the vinyl sounds better. Again, I do talk about the music first, but I think the dynamics these days, if you do a better sounding record, it's better for everyone. If you want to do, a compressed, piece of shit-ass mastering, do it for streaming or do it online or something. But when you're doing a record, do a separate mix. That is, this is probably voted the worst cover of the year, but there's so many variants, whether it's baseball variants or Paul Smith variants. You could find something that might be halfway decent. I did get the San Francisco Giants one. I don't know why, but I did. But I like this record, but it could sound better. It could be more dynamic. Then it would almost be perfect, and it would have been higher on my list. So number 17, the Rolling Stones. Coming at number 16, Chan Marshall's Cat Power. Cat Power sings Dylan. Now, this is a 2-record set. This recreates Bob Dylan's Royal Albert Hall concert. It was first bootlegged, eventually came out with all the bootleg series, official bootleg series. Of course, that Dylan concert was actually recorded in Manchester, but it was mislabeled initially as Royal Albert Hall. So it's actually usually called the Royal Albert Hall, even though it's not. But she recorded this at the Royal Albert Hall. I've been to that place twice. It's one of the most amazing places to see music. I just adore it, the sound, the ambience. It's a historic, beautiful venue. 2-record set. One is an acoustic set like the Dylan performance and the electric. I think the acoustic set by far on this, the first LP, is the best by far. I like the electric, but there's a haunting sound, the recording, her kind of raspy, salty, sensuous voice really works well with this material. I don't really have to tell you the names of all the songs, but a beautiful record. So coming in at number 16, Cat Power sings Dylan, the 1966 Royal Albert Hall concert. A spectacular record. Coming in at number 15 is a band that I saw 6-7 years ago opening up for another band at a tiny club in Seattle. The headlining band was Sunflower Bean. I went to see them. And the Lemon Twigs opened up. These 2 brothers with a full band from, I believe, Long Island. They blew me away. These guys are young, geniuses is the word you want to use, or I want to use. But there's something, musically, they're so in tune, and they're so out of date with what's happening now. But I think they found a niche with the festival circuit. You have to see this band live. Their records are so twee, so poppy. They're like The Sweet meets 10cc, meets Todd Rundgren. In fact, Todd Rundgren played with them on one of their albums. Meets Paul McCartney and Wings. It's that kind of 70s sound. Their harmonies, sometimes they're so dainty and beautiful in their vocals, and then they just get in this, great syncopation of power pop music from the 1970s. Fantastic. This is the Lemon Twigs, Everything Harmony. This is number 15. Again, just a beautiful record. They look and they dress like they're in the band Sweet or something. Anything out of the 1970s. They're like a throwback thing, but they're not a retro. They're not a cover band at all. But what a fantastic, 2 fantastic brothers. And they brought together a good band. So see them live, Lemon Twigs. This record is number 15. Coming in number 14, I've talked about my channel how I'm really not a big grunge fan. I pick and choose certain grunge things. But being in Seattle, I feel I owe it to the grunge community and the Seattle community to jump in a little bit. But I consider this band, even though they have grunge roots, more of the post-punk band. And I just love this band, and this is Mudhoney, and I've seen them a couple times since I've been living here, so just in the last decade. I think they've been together on and off over the years. They've been putting out records again. This is Plastic Eternity, Mudhoney. This is a great rock and roll record. It's grunge, it's pop, it's psychedelic, it's loud at times, and it's really, really a fine record. And I'm really enjoying this. This is a record that, when I want to have something to really get off my ass and just really kind of explosive record of the year, this is it. It's not the ongoing grunge with that gnarly vocal thing that I get turned off personally about. This Mudhoney album is a wonderful record. Plastic Enemy, Plastic Eternity. My mistake. And that is number 14. Coming at number 13 is a record. Now, this was a grower too, and I'm a fan of this band. And this is a beautiful record. This is the Wilco's latest album called Cousin. This is produced by Kate LeBon, British artist on her own right, in her own right, producer. I love this. You know, Jeff Tweedy's intimate, almost whispering at times vocal. There's some of this record that's low key. Sometimes it gets more powerful, more ethereal, a little kinetic at times, but in a good way, in that Wilco way. It's not as edgy as Yankee Foxtrot, not as original as that. They hark back to some things, but I think it's one of their better records of recent times. And I'm kind of all in on them, but I'm not a total completist and a total, you know, soul by Wilco. Yankee Foxtrot is my favorite. I like a lot of their records. I like the whole country rock thing, but I like the direction that Tweedy and the band has taken it to with some augmented, you know, almost on the avant-garde edge. Not on this as much. This is a very rootsy Americana record. Beautiful songwriting. There is some current politics, not even politics, but the second song, as a whisper, is called 10 Dead, and it's really basically waking up, another 10 dead, another 10 dead, 10 dead. It's about turning on the TV like seemingly every week or every other week and seeing another school shooting or shooting in America and people getting mowed down. And it's chilling, and it's almost innocent. If you didn't listen to lyrics, you wouldn't think it's a heavy song, but it is. But this is great. This is Wilco's album, Cousin, and this came in number 13. Coming in number 12 was a surprise, and I just love this record. This is Anohni and the Johnsons. Now, of course, Anohni used to be Anthony. Anthony and the Johnsons transitioned. This is a wonderful record produced by Jimmy Hogarth, who worked with Amy Winehouse and Duffy, a producer who likes to work with a lot of soul, neo-soul records. And there's a certain soulness to this, not unlike, you know, what's going on in terms of the political content, but not as direct in that. Now, this cover photograph is by Marsha P. Johnson. She was an activist, a trans activist during the Stonewall riots period in New York City. And she was found dead in the river. Suspect circumstances about it because there was a lot of in terms of gay rights and LGBT rights down at the time. And so Anthony and the Johnsons took their name of his musical name from Johnson, Marsha P. Johnson. So this is somewhat of a political record, but it's not in-your-face political record. There's one track with some howling guitar that's almost like this poetic, just intense assault on it, but the rest of it is a beautiful record, introspective about what's going on today, but it's not really, again, a slam-in-your-face political album of human rights or LGBT rights at all. But there's a certain soulness to it. It's a little different take on him. Now, I have several of his records when he was Anthony and the Johnsons on compact disc, and they're beautiful. I have heard his things on Leonard Cohen tribute records, also with several other artists that she sings harmony with. And this is a very surprising and very beautiful record, and maybe a little challenging for some, but I love this record, and I'm giving it, rating it at number 12 on my list 2023. Coming in number 11 is the latest record earlier this year by PJ Harvey. She had a whole reissue program over the last 3 years of all her records with outtakes and alternatives and things. And this is a really interesting record. This is an unusual record for her. I think it's more introspective. One of my favorite albums of hers was about a dozen years ago, Let England Shake. She has this sort of folk punk thing, and it reminds me of the very early Patti Smith at times. Sometimes her voice gets very high-pitched falsetto, then she brings it back. Unusual instrumentation on this album, and it's just a really good album, a little more on the experimental side for her records, but she's always used really different instrumentations in her collection. Again, she pairs with John Parrish, who produces this with her and arranges the musicians and things. But I think this is a fantastic album. This is called Inside the Old Year Dying by PJ Harvey, and this is coming in at number 11. This, of course, is I.O. by Peter Gabriel. This happens to be the Bright Mix. This was released on 2 versions, actually 3 if you count the surround Atmos thing. This is the bright side mixes. There is a dark side. I have not heard the dark side. I don't intend to initially. Maybe after months of me listening to this, I might check it out. But I really like this record, and I did do a video on this alone. This is his first new record in 21 or 22 years. However, he has been working on live records and soundtracks and other things. And he is not a lazy person, but it took forever to do this. Now, I did say in that video how there are reminiscences of other songs, of other music, of older Peter Gabriel, which is not a bad thing. His voice is great. When I said that, some say, is it auto-tuned? I have no idea. I don't hear digital artifacts or electronic artifacts. All I know is this sounds really, really good. I love the vinyl. It's a 2-record vinyl version. Beautiful packaging, a wonderful production. It's a thick album at times. There's some great hooks, great melodies, and it's not any different than an album like Us. In fact, it sounds like it could have been put out 2 years after Us. So is probably a sweet spot. Of course, I love the beginning. The first 3 albums are just probably more different for the time. I don't think this breaks any new ground, but it is a fantastic record, great accomplishment of this great artist. And I haven't seen him live since the 1980s. And of course, with Genesis on Lamb Lies Down on Broadway, the only time I saw him with Genesis. But coming at number 10 is Peter Gabriel's new album. Coming in at number 9 is the new album by Jenny Lewis, and this is Joy Y'all, which is so surprising because this is her first record on Blue Note Records. Now, maybe they're expanding because they don't do a lot of records in this genre, in this vein. Of course, we know Blue Note from their jazz issues for the most part, or jazz pop issues. This is nothing like that. She leaves LA, moves to Nashville, becomes more of a songwriter. She's always been a songwriter. She's a clever songwriter. This is a wonderful record. It's got, it could have been written in 1972 or 71. It has that Laurel Canyon, West Coast vibe. It's a very California album with a little country roots thrown in now that she's in Nashville. I love all her fashionista takes on the 70s, almost like, you know, collect all these wonderful cards of Jenny Lewis cards. Of course, she was in the band Rilo Kiley for a number of years, and she did some parallel solo records at that time. She no longer, as far as I know, performs with Rilo Kiley anymore. But there's some really good sounding hooks on this record. She is a fantastic pop, folk, rock, country songwriter. God, I should have said that a lot slower, right? Balcony, Chains of Tears, Love Feel. There's a certain bit of 70s soul on a couple of tracks here too. Fantastic record, it's got the lyrics. The sound is great. This is a record that is one of my favorite because there's hooks and it's one of those things that the hooks, like hearing a great pop single of the 1970s, after you play it a few times, the hooks really kind of just grab at you and you just, you know, you have these things going out in your head all the time and you can't get them out, these melody worms or whatever's growing up there. Love this album, Joy Y'all by Jenny Lewis, and that is number 9. Now, number 8 is The Third Mind. This is their second album. This is, you know, I wouldn't necessarily call it a super group, but it is a super group in terms of, I mean, we're not talking Cream and Blind Faith and that. However, these are a number of great musicians. It's pretty much led by Phil Alvin from the Blasters. This is their second album. I was all over their first album. They do mostly covers of songs from that 1960s, 67, 68, 69, blues, rock, psychedelic period, like Mike Bloomfield, like Super Session, like Electric Flag, those kind of bands. Even Jefferson Airplane, or not Jefferson Airplane, but The Great Society, The Great Slick, but a song that was a folk song, traditional blues, folk, rock song. Sally Go Around the Roses on here. You have Jesse Sykes doing these really interesting vocals of, I think, a voice you have to kind of get into and get used to. But she's in that vein of Grace Slick, not as pretty, not as belty and strong. You know, Grace Slick used to almost do these, Middle Eastern chants in some of the live. If you ever hear the live Grace Slick stuff, the Jefferson Airplane. You got David Immergluck on electric guitar, harmonium, Michael Jerome on drums, guitar. You got Victor Krummacher on bass guitar. Willie Aaron does some great stuff on the B3 organ, Mellotron on piano. There's a really nice, that's that psychedelic sound that I'm a big, big fan of. I am going to go see them. They're playing here in Seattle in January, and I am all in. It's psychedelic. All the instrumentation is great, but when Dave Alvin kicks in his guitar, is soaring, searing, psychedelic blues infusion of lead guitar is something that, as a 13, 14, 15-year-old boy, I just love that psychedelic sound. It's almost like the San Francisco sound and the LA sound combined with the Chicago, New York scene of Paul Butterfield Blues Band, like East West. In fact, they did East West on the first album, but Third Mind, this is a searing, amazing album, and it's really well recorded. It sounds fantastic. So this is the Third Mind. Go see them if they're playing near you. Coming in at number 8. Coming at number 7, this is the Britpop reunion album. Actually, they did one a few years ago too. This is Blur, and this is Damon Albarn, the lead singer and writer for Blur. This year they also put out another Gorillaz album. That's his pet project with all the anime characters. My son Joseph, it got me into Gorillaz. Of course, he's at that age. The anime got him in, but I didn't get the new Blur album, but I did buy for my son that Blur, that Gorillaz box set that came out for Record Store Day, I think 2 years ago or whenever it was. But this is a wonderful record. This is great Britpop. This is taking Britpop from the 90s and updating it for now. But the harmonies, the hooks, the vocals are beautiful. Songwriting's beautiful. So Blur, The Ballad of Darren, a great song cycle, really wonderful recorded record, and great British pop hooks. The harmonies are beautiful. You can't go wrong with this Blur album. I did not get the last one. I was mildly into Blur the first time around, but this is coming in at number 7, Blur, because it's really a fantastic British pop record for 2023. Coming in at number 6, this is a record by an artist that I had vaguely heard the name of this, and I kind of got turned off the name. I just thought, what is that? Sparklehorse. Who the hell is Sparklehorse? I just never got into that. And my friends here, Todd and Amanda, the archivist, really kind of got me into this. And I heard the record and I got into it and I played it again and again. And I think this is an amazing record. Now, it's bittersweet because this is number 6. This is called Bird Machine by Sparklehorse. Number 6, that's pretty high for a band who's been around for a while, an artist who's been around for a while, was around, I should say. Now, this is a unique situation in this list because this artist took his own life, and he started this record with Steve Albini, the great kind of indie, post-punk, organic producer. Love his sound, what he gets from records and musicians in the studio. And that kind of stuff eventually fell apart, never came out. And then the brother of Mark Linkous, he's the artist. He is basically the project, the leader of Sparklehorse. His project has been Sparklehorse over the years. Mark's brother, Matt Linkous, and his wife, Melissa, added to this, finished off these recordings, and just put it out this year. And this is really great. This is lo-fi. This is a collage of neo-psychedelic folk music, alt country. Occasionally there's noisy passages, but it's a very textured album. And it's one of those records you want to listen to over and over and over again. And it's kind of exciting. And you start hearing these little hooks and these little bits of production that really kind of grab you, at least grab me in my musical taste. So coming in at number 6, Sparkle Horse Bird Machine, a posthumous release. Coming number 5 is a duo that I got turned on to, and that is Leluc. This is a wonderful, ethereal duo of 2 musicians, of Zoe Randall and Steve Hassett. Zoe plays beautiful acoustic guitar and the main vocal, and then Steve Hassett does the harmonies, the guitar, synth, bass, drums, percussion, and they have other musicians, a couple other musicians chiming in occasionally. This is called Diamonds by Leluc. This came out, I think, mid-year or in the fall. This is a really beautiful record. There's a folky essence. There's a little dream pop, but more on the song. You know, dream pop tends to be more ethereal. These are just beautiful songs and beautiful harmonies. It doesn't jump out at you, and it's an album that grows on you because of the songs, the beauty of the harmonies, her voice. Zoe's voice is one of these voices that I could listen to her sing everything. And in fact, she does do one cover on here of the Marianne Faithfull song, As Tears Go By, the Rolling Stones song. This is the evening of the day. Beautiful version of it. This is a lovely record. I just love their songs. They're sort of very folksy. What a beautiful, beautiful recording. And every record they've done, I'm all in on. Pick up the Sub Pop records, but go check out Leluc. That's how you pronounce the duo, Diamonds, and that is number 5 on my 2023 list. Coming in number 4, a duo, another duo of brothers, and that's Sparks, the new album by Sparks. They've had a comeback of sorts over the last few years. That documentary on them, the Sparks Brothers, you need to see it. I urge you to see it, because even if you don't know anything about them, in fact, it's better if you don't, and you'll be amazed at their journey from very pop, art rock, 10cc-like, Queen-like, to electronica stuff with George Moroder, techno stuff in Germany and Europe into the 80s and on. And they've been doing records all this time. They have a rebirth the last several years. And this album, The Girl Is Crying in Her Latte. I love that. Clever lyrics. They're funny lyrics. Amazing electro pop. Obviously, they're the Mayo brothers right there. Some of their music is dance-based, electronic-based. Sparks, their new record, coming in number 4 on my list, 2025. Coming number 3, Bob Dylan's Shadow Kingdom. What a great record this is. This is recorded in a studio. Now, they don't have any credits on here, but apparently it's T-Bone Burnett, Don Was, a bunch of other musicians. He covers his own songs. Now, an artist covering their own thing, why is it that great? But what's amazing about this, it's got that rootsy acoustic sound. We all know how T-Bone Burnett's playing and Don Was wonderful bass playing. It's very organic. We got Dylan on a great vocal day for an 80-plus-year-old, 81, 82-year-old Bob Dylan. I love the sound of this record. And he goes through all these songs. There's no drummer on this. It's an acoustic album with a band, but no drummer. And I think that adds to it. You don't need a rhythm section like that. You have the bass, you have his vocals, his harmonica playing on tracks. There was a video, I think Apple TV or video companion that's been online with not even the real band members. They hired actors, models to pretend they're the band on that. But this is a wonderful sounding record. Bob Dylan's Shadow Kingdom, coming in at number 3 on this list. Coming in at number 2 is Javelin by Sufjan Stevens. This is a spectacular record. This is a pop record like pop records aren't made these days. If you know his work, if you know Carrie and Lowell, that came out, what, 6, 7 years ago, I'd say this is closer to that. This is a personal record. This is considering when it was made, he's got some health issues. His partner died last year or earlier this year. He made this wonderful, upbeat, beautiful record. This is, I hate to compare something to Sgt. Pepper, but at the time when Sgt. Pepper came out, I mean, it's easy to look back 55 years, whatever, and look at that record and say, oh, okay, everyone's doing that stuff. At the time, no one was doing what the Beatles did with Sgt. Pepper. This is a little like there's so much going on, but it's not an overproduced record. This is produced in his house. He produced this himself. There's some beautiful harmony vocals added by some female vocalists or vocalist. It's very poppy. It's very twee. He's got this gorgeous whisper of a voice that his voice sort of floats upon all the layers of music. So this is a record that could have been overproduced and too much shit going on, and it's not at all. I just think, I think this is a masterpiece already. I mean, we'll see over the years how this lasts, but there's something really special about this record. If you like the likes of, I mean, I want to compare it to Queen and 10cc again, that kind of twee thing, but it's nothing like that because they're sort of more rock and roll, and Queen obviously steps it up in a heavy rock sound to their work. It's not like that. I just say that because of harmony vocals, but it's not like that at all. There's a folkiness to it at times. There's personal tragedy. There's personal beauty. God, it's just so much here. And this is one of those records, again, that every time I put it on, I'm hearing something new, and I constantly play this record. I will put this on every other day. I would put it on more, but right now there's so much music I'm going through. There's just no time. But this is Sufjan Stevens coming in #2. Now my #1 album for 2023 is an album that just grabbed me, and it's a record I kept putting on, and I love this record. In a time where we are now, where the world is on fire, the universe is expanding, politicians and left and right people are fighting each other and yelling at each other, everything is so loud. This is the essence of music for me right now, and it's Folkocracy by Rufus Wainwright. A beautiful cover album of folk tunes. Some you know, some you may not know. If you're not a folk fan and follow folk music, this is great American and British and Scottish folk songs, curated by Mitchell Froom, the producer, and Rufus Wainwright, and collaborate with a lot of, from family members to other artists on here. This is a beautiful sounding record, and this record tugged at my heart, and I actually got emotional several times. The other night I played this again when I was reviewing all these records to cull it down, and this is the record that I felt more than any other record because of the time we're in and his vocals on this and his sincerity on this. And then he goes into Heading for Home with John Legend. Now, I'm not a John Legend fan. Great talent, but a little too slick for my taste. And there is a purity and a slickness to some of these vocals on here, and these singers, they're all wonderful singers. It's not like that Bob Dylan or even the Sufjan Stevens that has a really unique kind of voice. But I think Rufus Wainwright's tenor really grounds it. And having these other vocalists adding to him sort of brings in the highers and the lowers where he's right there in the center of this. And Mitchell Froom did a great production job on that. It goes into the song 1230, which is the Mamas and Papas song. What a great song. It's parentheses, young girls are coming to the canyon. Coming into the canyon, that song got a resurgence in the last Quentin Tarantino movie. Young girls are coming to the canyon in an ominous way of the Manson girls literally walking up, and they play the original Mamas and Papas song. But the harmonies on this of Susanna Hoffs from the Bangles, Chris Stills, son of Steve Stills, Sheryl Crow. Oh God, the way they blend on this, it's a joyous song. It's that Summer of California of Laurel Canyon. It's an excellent song on here. Down in the Willow Garden is this wonderful Charlie Monroe song, and it's based on a traditional folk song. I first heard that song, many people, 1 million people have covered that song in the folk tradition. I first heard it in 1973 on Art Garfunkel's debut album, and it's almost like a murder ballad. It's a sad song, and that was on Angel Clare, but he does it beautifully here with a duet with Brandi Carlile, and the way the way their voices blend. He does a wonderful cover of Harvest with Chris Stills and Andrew Bird, the Neil Young song. But this song written by Rufus Wainwright, Going to a Town, and Anoni, who I referred to earlier, does this amazing kind of counterpoint harmony and other vocals on this. And those two singing together, and it's an intense song about America and about, you know, not loving what's happening in America. It's probably the most pointed song, the most direct political song on the album. And he had written that a while back, but he adds it to this collection. He does an original Van Dyke Parks song called Black Gold, which features actually Van Dyke Parks, and really beautiful version of that. Cotton Eye Joe with Chaka Khan, so Rufus and Rufus, in essence, playing together. But one of also my favorite songs, and it really brought a tear to my eye, literally, is the closing song, a traditional song, Wild Mountain Time. Now, I've known that song for 50 years because the Byrds did a jingle jangle folk rock version of it. This is such a beautiful version with Rufus Wainwright, Anna McGarrigle, his aunt on vocals and the accordion, Chaim Tannenbaum. When I heard, this is the old voice, the old deep voice on the album. When I first heard it and I wasn't looking at the album, I could have sworn it was Pete Seeger's voice. It's got that gravitas and lowness of a Pete Seeger. And then it also has Lee Lankin and Lucy Wainwright, Roach, and Martha Wainwright. And I can't tell you how beautiful this record is. Now, again, this is one that I know a lot of people aren't going to grab onto. So it's probably an unusual choice. I'm not picking it to be hip, because certainly this would not be considered a hip record. I just heard it was nominated for a Best Folk Album of the Year Grammy, which doesn't mean anything, but maybe it'll give it a big audience. But if you're a fan of folk music, if you're a fan of the singer-songwriter 70s, beautiful harmonies, beautiful recordings. This is on BMG Records. It's got, I mean, I'd tell you, this packaging must have cost some bucks. It's got all the lyrics. It's got notes from Rufus Wainwright here, which really gives you an idea and the reasoning behind the selection of these songs. Double record set, the #1 record of 2023 for me, a record that really kind of, it hit me not only in my ears, but in my heart. This is a wonderful record for 2023, Folkocracy by Rufus Wainwright. That's it. Thank you for watching. The only thing left at the end of the year is my switching directions, my top 10 wankers, musical wankers of the year. But I almost feel dirty saying wankers after talking about that beautiful record. But so be it. Thank you very much, and Mazzy loves you.